All praises to Yahawah, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakar Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elected nation of Israel. And this is going to be a lesson on how the other creations of Yahawah show that man has got a lot more improvements that can be made on him. Right? And what I mean by that is that when you look at the other things that Yahawah has made, the other animals, elephants, moose, birds that can fly, penguins, lions, tigers, all the different insects that Yahweh's created, cows, all these different things that Yahweh's made, right? Monkeys, how they can climb trees all crazy and all that. The strengths of gorillas, certain like physical traits that certain of these animals that can see in the dark and all these things that can do. Certain of these animals that can run crazy high speeds. When you look at the things that they can do physically, right? And then when you look at the things that even the human men, even when you look at the best men, the Israelite man, and see the things that he can do physically, and then you just take a random animal, right, like a normal house dog, and then compare that to the speed of how a man can run, the normal everyday house dog will win against the fastest men on earth now, right? But when you consider that man's in the highest position on all the creatures of the earth, even though physically he's not physically the greatest of all creatures that Yahweh made, right? Men are not stronger than Leviathan, are they? Men don't have the strength of a Leviathan, do they? Men can't fly right now, but yet we're in charge of all the creatures of the earth. It shows you that men can improve a lot more, because just pick any animal and just apply any animal, any fascinating animal, the best traits of it towards men. Just why one of Yahweh's creations of another animal, and add those to what a man can do, and how much more better is that man going to be, right? Take what a caterpillar can do and apply it to an Israelite man. Where imagine an Israelite man went into a cocoon for a certain amount of time, or any human was just able to go into a cocoon for a certain amount of time, and when they come out of it, they're a completely different creature. Well, people would say that that's preposterous, or that could never happen. And yet we know that in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, we are going to be changed, and we're going to become a completely different creature, the Israelite man is. Right, now I'm going to read this, Wisdom of Solomon chapter 13 and verse 1. Surely vain are all men by nature, who are ignorant of God, and could not out of the good things that are seen know him that is, neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the work master. And a lot of people don't acknowledge the work master. They see all these crazy things that Yahweh's made, and they're like, no, this just came from a Big Bang theory. This just came from an explosion that they can't explain, by the way. They can't explain how this stuff came to be. They're guessing, they're making things up that they think sounds good. But they don't acknowledge that, man, a God made this. And then they don't think, man, if you apply these things that these animals can do and put it into a man, that he can improve way better. They don't want to believe that a man can improve all these different ways. They don't want to acknowledge that, man. Or they think that if it does happen, it's going to be done by technology. No, Yahweh's gonna improve at default settings the way how a man can be. Especially the Israelite man is going to change the way how we are. And all the different creations that Yahweh has made amongst the living animals proves that's a possibility. If you look at the strength that these monkeys have, if you look at the strength of an ant, right? If you look at how a spider can just climb up anything vertical, they can climb on the ceilings and all that, right? Spider-Man and all that. Like if you look at all these superhero movies, you'd be like, man, they're basically just doing traits of what animals that Yahweh actually made can do. They're just doing things that Yahweh's already got creatures out there can do. Super speed. That there's already animals out there that have got the things that we would call super speed if we could do them. If we could literally run the speed of a gazelle, people wouldn't care for cars. They'd run to work, man. They'd jog to work or whatever. Get some exercise in while they go. Public transport would be done out. People would just jog to work, man. All the swimming and all that. Like, if for humans to swim now, mate, you have to learn. You have to learn that. It's not precocious for us to just be able to swim. We have to learn swimming, and Jake ain't really the best swimmer. I ain't the best swimmer. I can swim enough to not, like, completely drown, I guess, maybe, but I can't even remember when the last time I swam was. I can't remember. I can't remember when the last time I did any swimming was, man. I cannot remember when the last time was. Verse 2, but deemed either fire or wind or the swift air or the circuit of the stars or the violent water or lights of heaven to be gods which govern the world, whose beauty, with whose beauty, if they being delighted, took them to be gods, let them know how much better the Lord of them is. For the first authority of beauty have created them exactly. Yahawah decided what's beautiful. Even when we see a woman and we look at her, right? And we think, oh, that woman's beautiful, and then we look at another woman, we think that woman is not beautiful. We look at one woman's glutes, one woman's ass, and we're like, man, that's a nice ass. Another woman's ass, and we think that's not a nice ass. The reason why we even know what a nice ass is and ain't, and what we even think an attractive woman is and ain't, right, is because of what Yahawah set the standards of it within us to be like. Verse 4, but if they were astonished by the beauty and virtue, let them understand by them how much mightier he is that made them exactly. Yahawah literally set the human man at the top of all creation, and yet there's creatures out there that can do greater things than us. But if we're not in our final state yet, and you don't believe that we're going to be able to do the things that all these other creatures that Yahawah made can do, well, you're delusional, right? I personally think that who an Israelite man is going to become be able to have the qualities of what a submarine can do in the kingdom. We're going to be able to literally breathe underwater if we want to. Be able to do deep sea diving without any equipment, man. Just be able to go in the water and we can breathe under there. I personally think that now. If that don't happen, okay. But if that's one of the things that I'm thinking is going to happen, that's another additional thing that's going to surely be a defense against me taking the MOTB that I'm hoping for that. That's another defense. All the hopes that you have in what's going to be in the kingdom of heaven is just another defense that you have to keep you away from taking the MOTB. That's all it is. That's the way I look at it anyway. Everything that we hope for is one more thing that's going to make us not want to take the MOTB. All right. Verse 4, but if they were astonished... No, I read that already. Verse 5, for by the greatness and beauty of the creatures, proportionally the maker of them is seen. And that's what I was going into. All the different creations that Yahawah's made, man. You can be like, man, Yahawah's made... Like I remember, I think I saw that a bumblebee, and I don't want to misquote here, but a bumblebee flaps its wings like something crazy, like 200 times a second. Imagine if a boxer could throw 200 punches a second, who would be able to beat him? Who would be able to beat him, man? Because that's like a bee's arms, right? Their wings is like their arms, right? Imagine if a human boxer, imagine if a man could move his arms 200 times a second. Who's messing with him with the hands? Nobody. Imagine a man could throw 200 kicks in a second. Just even when you imagine a man's kick can be as fast as his jab. Like, I remember there's a video going around with Mike Tyson crying, talking about he made that certain fighters that he used to look up to was able to make 2 punches sound like one. And he was crying about, like, you ain't even thought about that before, have you? And when I consider that 2 punches sound like one, it is like, it's beautiful to try and make 2 punches sound like one. But then if you can do what a bumblebee can do and flap your arms like something crazy, like hundreds of times a second, let me just leave it at that number, hundreds of times in a second, that's how many punches is that sounding like one? That would be like 100 punches sounding like one then. And how much more beautiful would that be then? But in the kingdom, we're going to be able to do stuff like that, man. If Jakes just decide to, just for the fun of it, spar with each other or whatever, right, which I think that they might, that'll be fun. 2 Jakes that was into martial arts back in the world, and they decide to just joke around and spar with each other in the kingdom, just to test their skills, because then there ain't anybody else worthy to mess with them physically. So they just decide to spar with another Jake. That'll be fun. Whichever one, and it's just something like whichever one removes this ribbon from the other one's waistband first wins. And you gotta try and fight and try and, you know what I mean, you're parrying shots and all that to try and remove the ribbon. remove a ribbon from their shoulder, whatever. That'll be fun. That'll just be a little fun spar thing, man. It'll be fun, a fun little game or whatever. But people don't want to acknowledge some of these things, man. They want to try, and when we say that we're going to be immortal and all these things, oh nah, you're making things up. But there's animals out there that can live crazy amounts of time. Yahweh's already made animals that can live crazy amounts of time. But people don't want to acknowledge these things when we say it, but there's already things out there that can do that. And they acknowledge it for those creatures, but then they don't acknowledge it for the highest ranked creatures. We're not in our max form yet, man. And that's what these people don't understand. Verse 6, but yet for this they are less to be blamed, for they peradventure seeking God and desires to find him. For being conversant in his works, they search him diligently and believe their sight because the things are beautiful that are seen. And that's where some of these people praise and worship these animals and that. But then you got people that don't want to acknowledge that we're greater and that we can be like that. They can acknowledge that their eyes have seen it in other things that live. But then when thinking that we could be changed and be like that, then they're, oh, nah. But then some of these same people that will say, oh, nah, will be talking about some evolution stuff and all that. But then they don't believe that we could evolve to be able to bring on some of these traits onto ourselves, which we are going to evolve, but not under no Scientology way, under no scientific way what they're coming with, under a spiritual way through the power of Yahawah, which is going to come through the power of Yahawah. So Yahawah, Bahasham Yahawah, Yahawah in the name Yahawah, is how we're going to get these things, man. We're going to get it through Yahawah by Yahawah's name, because he's the mediator. Verse 8, howbeit neither are they to be pardoned, for if they were able to know so much that they could aim at the world, how did they not sooner find out the Lord of exactly? All you people that are praising the creations of Yahawah and thinking that they're gods, how didn't you think, but these things were created though, so something made them? And all you people that can acknowledge that creatures of the earth that Yahawah made can do all these beautiful things, how are you not able to then acknowledge that, hang on, if these creatures can do all of these things, then eventually we're going to be able to do them maybe. And not maybe, have some faith and think definitely. Or have an imagination about you so you've got something to hope for, man. Super speed, super strength, all these crazy things, all these crazy physiological traits that some of these animals and insects that Yahawah made have, we're going to be able to do these things, man. Certain types of skin that some of these animals have, like I think the honey badger's skin is super thick, that is hard to be penetrated with a sharp blade and stuff like that. These are things that our skin's going to be like, man. Our skin's going to be smooth, right? But it's going to be different kind of skin than what we have now. Bang your toe right now in this kingdom, man. You'll be on the floor crying. But in the kingdom, we ain't just going to drop and have broken bones. We ain't going to have, if we lean up and have all these DOMs, delayed onset muscle soreness, all this pain and all that. We ain't going to have all that kind of stuff going on, man. The bodies that we got now are through, man. You do a workout, you do a heavy leg day. You wake up the next day walking around like old man Joe out here, man. Limping around like you've had a hip replacement, bro. Need 3 days rest before you can do anything else. You get some muscle tightness in your forearm, right? Get some muscle tightness in your forearm and try and do something that needs you to grip something. Like let's say you're a carpenter, an electrician, any kind of job that requires you to hold power tools, yeah? Get some muscle tightness in your forearm and see if you can easily grip your tools to do your job as a construction worker. You ain't going to be able to. You ain't going to be able to do that. Get some lower back pain. You think we're going to have to worry about lower back pain in the kingdom? No, we're not, man. But I just wanted to do this video quickly anyway about how if you can see all the traits that these animals have, we're going to be able to do them things and greater. Shalom.